I think what stands out for me from this conversation is that understanding another person isn't something we arrive at once and complete. It's ongoing. And my conversation with Brian really made me think that support isn't about fully knowing exactly what someone is experiencing. It's more about staying open and staying curious and staying connected, even when you don't fully understand it from the inside. This is She 2.0, and this season is Talking to Men, the conversations we're not having. Let's get into it. Good morning, Brian.
Morning.
Thanks for joining me. I put a call out to men to ask them to weigh in on the topic of women's midlife health and menopause because there is a lot of gaps in information there and a lot of gaps in our own communication. So I want to thank you for responding and agreeing to talk to me today.
Absolutely. In my relationship, it's become an important topic. So I felt it was important that I share my experience.
Thank you. So I want to dive right in. I sent you a questionnaire and I loved your responses. That's why you're my first podcast guest. Because they showed a lot of self-awareness and areas that I could see where, see it from the other side. So I want to dive in with the first question,
Yeah.
which was really about, the nature of your relationship and how that kind of like plays into these conversations. And you mentioned that you and your wife talk about everything like moods, reactions, bad days. So, what does open communication, as you had said, look like in your relationship?
Basically, just as it sounds. We both came from similar previous marriages in that we were doing most of the heavy lifting, both, financially and emotionally kind of thing, and got divorced out of not wanting to do that anymore. And when we found each other, it just once we'd spent some time together, we realized how easy it was to talk to each other and how good it felt to not have to try to either hide things or you know try to keep their feelings from the other person. It's just it became a good feeling gating, and now it's second nature that whatever we're feeling or whatever we're experiencing at the time needs to be shared with the other person so that they can either sympathize or appreciate what we're going through.
Okay. And so, would you say that your situation in your relationship has changed since you first met? And I really am saying without saying menopause.
Yeah. It has, of course, obviously. We were yeah, I mean, like, everybody goes through changes as they mature, as you learn and the rest of it, but it was more dramatic, I would say, than either of us were expecting, but it didn't make things more difficult. It didn't make communication more difficult. It just made it more, I guess, frequent. Again, coming from a place where you couldn't really share anything, it became easier to talk to
Okay.
somebody, and when she was in the circumstances that she was in, she felt it was easier to talk to me, and I did appreciate that as well.
Okay. It's interesting. You said then either of you were expecting. So, had you both sort of seen this coming and anticipated it and chatted about
Um,
it, or?
well, there's a lot of, obviously the internet being what it is, there's a lot of memes and things around that, and you can't escape the clock, if you will. So everyone knows at a certain age things start to happen. So there was always the anticipation. So we were expecting it, but you don't think about it. It's never front of mind, of course, until it happens. So
Yeah. So, you have sort of answered this, but do you think being in a second marriage changes how you approach this sort of communication and conflict that happens in every relationship?
it definitely does for me. I don't want to speak for Jess necessarily, but I feel that she feels the same way as well. But definitely the lived experience from having to deal with someone else's, emotions and understanding how important it is to, again, to be open about things, hiding stuff always comes back to bite you in the butt. So just knowing how the first one came to a head and how it ended, uh, it was an easy transition, to be honest.
So do you think that you listen differently now than you did might have years ago? Or do you feel like things are the same, but you're in a more amenable circumstance to be heard and to listen?
Definitely more amenable, but yeah, no, I'm more willing to listen as well, I think, definitely.
Oh, okay. Oh,
definitely.
that's great
Knowing
to
knowing how it feels to have someone listen to me when I know it's not the same biologically, but I mean, I can only speak for myself and a few of the guys that I know, but there is a certain change that goes on in men too, and I don't think it's not physical, and it's definitely mostly psychological, and I think it has a lot to do with just getting older.
Mhm.
But, it's nice to have someone who listened to me complain about the things that I'm dealing with as well, and so it's a gift that I'm giving to her, being able to listen to some of the stuff that she has to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that because I mean, midlife is something for men and women. It's not gender specific. And I like that you say that, but 1 in 6 men, I think, 1 in 6, and I don't have that stat maybe correct, go through andropause, which is a drop in testosterone. So, yes, men do go and men do deal with midlife loneliness and depression. So, we're all going through something, which is why it's important to have these conversations and approach them with empathy. Do you think that your experience has changed the way that you interpret, like, your emotional reactions to some of the things that happen when your wife is having maybe a hormone rage or depression or whatever her, issues might be with menopause?
I mean, I definitely empathize more, I don't automatically I mean, I don't know if this was me or if that's just I automatically would blame myself when something was going wrong. And now I understand that it's a conversation that needs to be had. If she is feeling something so strongly, then we need to sort of figure out why. She takes on a lot of responsibilities, and sometimes, we hide things without meaning to. And when she's upset, there's definitely a reason for it. And it doesn't make any sense to me because I know when I'm upset, I stomp around, I make noise. I'm waiting for somebody to come and ask me what's wrong.
Yes, that's me.
And I want that sympathetic hand on my shoulder to say, Is everything okay? And not to be like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why are you reacting like this?
Yeah.
Let's be logical about this. Everybody has reactions for one reason or another. There's something making you react that way.
Mhm.
Something that I can do to figure out why you're reacting that way. And so yeah, I never would have reacted this or like fed into reactions this way before. Never. When I was younger, I was more reactionary. Like, stop trying to make things about yourself. Stop trying to get me to stop what I'm doing to help you out. The shortest distance between 2 points is helping you so that we can get back to where everybody's comfortable and happy. Mm.
I love that because I do think that often, and this is not like a slam against men, but I mean, I'm married to one. I think sometimes men, and I'm only talking about this in a menopause situation or midlife health where women are still trying to figure it out too, respond to the reaction and not really like without fully understanding what's underneath it, right?
Yes.
And I do that too. Like if my husband's in a bad mood and he snaps at me, I respond to him snapping, not the fact that he's just had a bad day or something's happened. And that's something we all have to learn to do a
Yeah,
little better.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Same
Yeah.
here. But I like that you realize when it's happening that there is something underlying and it's not you. It's not personal.
Yeah, and she's my best friend, honestly, and so there's a reason that she's reacting that way. There has to be some stimulus that's
Yeah.
causing whatever reaction it is, and be it good or bad or confusion or whatever, knowing what it is it just helps make everything easier.
So, what do you think it is about these moments, like when someone snaps, or all of a sudden they're upset, or they see the world different, or they're off about something? Like, what is it that makes those moments so easy to misinterpret? Like, from who your wife was when you first met her to now. I know that you have very open communication, but in general, it is very easy to misinterpret these responses from us,
Well, I think a
from
lot of the
women.
time the emotions that are coming from the person that's causing the reaction are strong ones, or the more primal ones. It's rage, it's sadness, it's fear kind of thing. And that, regardless of who you're around, is going to cause a reaction. If somebody starts crying on the subway, people are going to react. So
Mhm.
when it's someone you care about, you're going to have a strong reaction. And if it's unusual, if it's a rage reaction out of the blue, I think, you get defensive immediately as sort of a lizard brain reaction to being attacked. Some people just I don't know if they're willing to admit that, they're scared or whatever, and so they get angry, which is
Mhm.
the easiest way to deal with any situation as far as I'm concerned. The
Yeah.
more you yell, the faster people move away, right? So I think if it's a strong emotion that's being conveyed that you feel like you need to be defensive, which is why the reactions are so strong.
Yeah, and I actually think that's where the disconnect starts to happen in relationships when people we respond to the visible reaction instead of the internal experience that's driving that reaction.
Yeah.
Hey, you are passing with flying colors here, Bryce. I want to talk more about expectations here because relationships are patterns and expectations.
Definitely.
Have there been moments when your expectation of how someone would respond didn't match what actually happened?
Do you mean people laughing at my jokes?
No. Everyone should laugh at your jokes. That goes without saying.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, mostly with like when she doesn't like being surprised. I've tried a few times to surprise her with things, and I'm not sure if it's what she's going through or if it's just who she is as a person, but she likes to be in charge of things. So any reactions just tend to be a little bit stronger. And you just learn to anticipate, right?
So you realized that like later on that her reaction had less to do with you than maybe you initially thought.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is it's still hard for me sometimes. If I'm
Yeah.
feeling emotional about something, it still feels like an attack, an unwarranted attack sometimes, even if rationally I know that it isn't. And it's getting over yourself and is a big part of it.
Yeah, I think we do rely more on emotional predictability in our relationships than we realize. So when things change, it's hard not to take it personally. And
Very unsettling.
yeah, I think that's where couples really struggle in these times, right?
I think struggling in general makes a person unwilling to not accept, but listen to someone else's struggle. I mean, that's great that you feel bad, but listen to me right now. You don't understand. And then that, I think, is where, the divide starts. Because if
Yeah.
you don't care about me, then I really don't care about what you have to say.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
If we're going to
Exactly.
fight about this, we're going to fight. It doesn't need to be a fight. It just needs to be someone has to concede, right? I mean, that makes it sound again like it's a fight, but somebody has to be the one to listen first, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I agree with you. And I think that what happens, and it happens with me, is I don't know if two egos, come up into the situation and we become like two dinosaurs fighting. But you're right. Someone has to like slow it down because we are supposed to be here to listen to each other. And I think when we're fighting, we're just at each other. No one's absorbing anything. Everyone's just waiting for their moment to get that shot in.
Well, yeah, exactly. And even during that, I want to get on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Now that I know that we're fighting, whatever it is, I just want this to stop because I feel better when we're not fighting. So let's get this fight out of the way. Let's resolve it, which means let's figure out what we're fighting about.
Yeah.
Why are you so mad about the fact that I parked in the garage today? Why do you care?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the issue? Not
It
just
is
I can
those
do what I
moments.
want.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just
Um, and you do find like, I find that the things that we get into tussles about seem so ridiculous later.
it is. It
Yeah,
is.
and then
But
we
there's
both
things
walk
that
away
are
and realize what happened there, but not in the moment. Can I ask you something? Do you think that there is a difference between talking about something and then actually understanding what it feels like from the inside? So, when you guys are talking about how these things are playing out, for her, for example,
yeah.
it's one thing to listen, but lived experience is such a different perspective on that situation.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not gonna generalize. I mean, I don't my emotions, I don't think are that complex necessarily, right? And there's a lot of things that she tries to convey to me that I don't think I necessarily rationally understand.
Yep.
Like the way that she has conflicting feelings about like familial things or relationships she has with her girlfriends that, because I have no real foundation of experience with these things, it's hard
Yeah.
for me to understand why you're having such complex feelings about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, you just have to accept that it all comes from somewhere, you know?
Mhm.
That, sometimes people also just want to be listened to.
Very good point. And I
Not
think
not judged in any way, you know?
exactly, like, and I think what you said, that's an important distinction because many women are trying to explain what they're experiencing, but explanation and lived experience are never the same thing or rarely the same thing. And some things you just cannot explain. You had to be there,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So that can make this whole thing, I think that can actually make this really tricky because this is a lived experience issue for women, but it's also something women don't understand themselves. It's not like childbirth where we could get answers. I mean, we're just starting to get information. So, just based on lived experience, and you guys are talking about it, and you are having these experiences together, you're trying to navigate it together. You are clearly trying to figure out how to be supportive. But lived experience, as we said, it cannot be conveyed just strictly through conversation. When did that click for you? Like, when did you realize, oh, this is something I'm going to listen to and absorb, but I'm not going to be able to fully understand this?
Fairly early on, I would say. I mean, there was just there was a lot of times when I was I was sort of struggling to understand what she was so upset about. It'd be frustrating, and we had a few frustrating conversations where I would misinterpret what she was trying to say, or she was unable to convey what it was that she meant in like,
Yeah.
you know, she's like, I can't say it right, or you're not hearing me right. But either way, you have no idea what the hell I'm trying to tell you.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, no, that makes sense. I get that you're frustrated and you're obviously angry at me for something, but you know, you just it happens. And but yeah, it started you know, very early on when she started having mysterious symptoms. And of course, the flashes she used to think were rage. She used to
Ah.
think that she was getting angry about something. And so that created for some interesting circumstances.
So it had to be something you did.
Well, yeah, because it was typically like big emotional situations where she would all of a sudden flush and she's like, I don't know why, but you're really starting to piss me off. And I'm like, okay.
See, I often think men need like a Hurt Locker outfit for these moments, right?
Well,
Just
I
to
mean, so,
protect
you
you.
know, just like, what did I do?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what you're saying is really important because the support that we need, it doesn't always come from fully understanding something. I mean, sometimes it's just staying present, even when you don't understand, right? Just so your partner knows that this is a safe place.
Yeah.
We can talk about this. You're not going to hate me. You're not going to leave me. You're not going to walk away. You're not going to think I'm nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have all sorts of interests that she has no interest in whatsoever. Then she does a lot of nodding and smiling and understanding looks and stuff like that. So I think the least I can do is try to understand hers.
That's fair. I mean, I think that's typical, right? I'm not interested in everything my partner says, and he is absolutely not interested in everything I have to say.
Sure.
I mean, that's why we have other friends and relationships. So I think that a lot of men get a bad rap here. And I do think it comes down to an inability to really clearly communicate. We don't fully have the language around this. We don't have the research. And so many women are so in the dark about what's happening, and it's scary. And it also comes with this life change where we're afraid of being aged out of our careers and becoming invisible. So we don't like talking about it. And I know for myself, I'm on a very short fuse when these things happen.
Yeah.
And, any response can trigger a volcanic eruption on my behalf because I'm easily triggered when I'm afraid. And I think a lot of us are afraid. Like, what's happening? Like brain fog. Am I getting dementia? Like Alzheimer's? They're
Sure.
very scary things. And, like you said earlier, the memes and the jokes online, I think we're kind of all over them. Like, we're done. We're done as women. We're like, okay, that's not funny anymore. Like, these
Yeah.
are
I
real
mean, I can understand.
concerns.
It's like it's only funny until it's not, and it's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine as a male or, you know, living the male experience, all of a sudden having a certain age where just everything changes.
Yeah.
And life is basically a subtle change from going to the peak and then sort of everything breaking down on the way out. But
Yeah.
that's everybody. But all of a sudden your entire like wet works changes in the middle of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It's not something that I can really wrap my head around. And so I sort of try to remind myself of that, that she's becoming a different sort of type of person now, you
Yeah.
know? Like you're
Yeah.
and so it's a big deal. It's not like changing careers, you know?
No. No, and it's interesting you said that because we have many different ways of expressing this, from reinvention to renewal to empowerment to, all the key words. But the reality is we are sort of becoming someone different, and not in a bad way. I mean, I'm a different
Yeah,
person than I was in my 20s, and I
sure.
became a different person when I had a kid. And now I'm a different person because my daughter's growing up and I have no hormones left, whatever. But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's almost, you're safe to shift your focus, you know? She was, as a younger person, so determined to, be a mom and fulfill the biological imperative and all the rest of it. And, it's important that, I do this, meet these certain criteria that in my mind make me a woman kind of thing. And then once that part of her life is behind her, now she's, four barrels into, I'm having three different businesses and I'm going to make X amount of money by the time I'm this age. And, now I'm unstoppable because I don't have to worry about any of that anymore. It's behind me.
yeah.
And I also I have no idea what that's like, There isn't gonna be any big shift in my life that's gonna enable, a sort of a different phase, if you will. I just sorta have to deal with getting older.
Well, they call it we used to call it a midlife crisis, and guys would get
Mhm.
a sports car, but that too was a, like, prolific misunderstanding, like,
Mhm.
again, fun to joke about it, but what was really going underneath that you felt the need to, make this monumental shift in your life.
I need to overcompensate for something.
Exactly, and it could be something you're afraid is coming, or you're avoiding a stigma about aging that's coming your way because that's what the media's fed you. Who knows? But, we've gotta stop looking at these things on the surface.
Yeah. My personal opinion is midlife crises generally come from a lifetime of struggle and inadequate feelings. And when you finally get the chance to blow it out after living so small for so long, you just do something stupid.
Yeah.
And I feel if you live a less repressed life, then midlife crisis will become a thing of the 80s.
Now, I know, like, I don't know you personally if you talk to your guy friends a lot about this, but I think, like, talking to a lot of women, and I have a lot of male friends, so we do have these conversations. I know from both sides, from both conversations, what men and women feel is lacking here. What do you personally think women wish men understood more about this phase of life?
That they didn't really choose what's happening, that they're not leaning into being uncomfortable. They are uncomfortable. They are scared or angry or whatever it is, and it's not just they're not using it as an excuse. I think because a lot of jokes, I guess, that I hear, from the guys that I hang out with is, about, "Oh, you can tell by her age that she's not gonna be fun to deal with." Meaning, their personality's shifted. They're not as,
Yeah.
happy and fun and bubbly because they're older now. They're more
Yeah.
serious and likely they're more angry. And I hear that a lot and I nod and I smile and I shake my head. I'm like, you guys don't know. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason half of you were divorced and not remarried. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can understand why maybe you might say that on the outside, but I don't think myself. I think I've become, more volatile during those moments, but in general, I'm still the same person who sees a lot of things from the same sort of perspective that I did. I still find the humor in things. I don't think I've changed into an intense, angry old woman, but I do think I've become less tolerant of things I used to laugh off because it was uncomfortable, or, women are raised to be people pleasers. So that bubbly, laughy thing, sometimes that's bullshit.
It ain't
Sometimes
bullshit.
that's what we do. We get through,
Most of
and
the time
now,
it is.
yeah, and now we're like, "I don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So if you're not funny or you're, taking up my time, I'm gonna let you know now. I don't
Yeah.
have to put up with it." So,
It's my favorite change in Jess's personality is her lack of caring about things she doesn't care about. The
Yes.
lack of tolerance for shit she doesn't care about anymore. It's my
Exactly.
favorite change. She used to
Yeah.
smile and nod just to make people feel better.
Mhm.
Now it's not as important. She's like, "You know what? I felt bad for too long. I don't care. I'm leaving."
Exactly. We are putting our own interests, back up on at least the top 30 in the to-do list.
Yeah.
But it is an important change, and this is when women do start businesses and do find that sort of second wind where they're like, "Okay, I've done a bunch of hard things, and now my body's changing." And when we lose some of these hormones, we do start to lose that giving a shit hormone, and it's great. You
Yeah.
can't It's a lived experience, so you can't tell a 20-year-old woman, "Hey, don't worry about this now, because in 30 years, you're gonna laugh about this," because you have to go through it.
It's true. Yeah.
So I appreciate you saying that. I really do, and I appreciate that you look at it that way because it is very, upsetting to be dismissed for something, like you said, that we don't choose.
Yeah.
And also, it does lead us, if we can be more positive about it, to, I think, a far more optimal lifestyle, but that's to be determined, so and I think it is also one of the hardest things for women because we're still trying to understand it while we're living through it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, sometimes we just wanna say, "Suck it up. We gotta go through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, you can, hang on for the ride."
But hey, if it's worth it, it's worth it, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And with Jess, I found it's definitely worth
it
it.
is worth it. It's worth it, trust me. I mean, relationships, we need to see how they play out through the hard times, not just the good times,
100%. 100%.
because
If we
life
want someone to listen to us, we have to listen to someone else.
yeah, and life does have more challenges. When we get older, now we're dealing with growing kids and aging parents and aging out of careers and, we need levity and we need empathy. So, I have one last question for you. We've talked a lot about, us women and how it plays out for us. But what about you? What have you learned about yourself through this whole experience?
That I wasted a lot of years being intolerant, that I should have listened a lot more when I was younger. I was always driven to succeed, I guess. And I always thought that it was a force of will that would get me to that place when really the shortest distance to being a successful person or a successful leader is to have listened. If I had listened to more people and heard what they had to say, it probably would have made life easier for me. So it's definitely paying off for me now. So it just makes sense that it would have made sense to do it younger.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a life lesson, and I'm glad that you like reflect on it and look at it that way because we're always growing, we're always learning. This is just another one of those moments, I guess. And I think it's interesting too because, these difficult seasons that we go through in relationships, they don't just reveal what someone else is going through, they reveal how we respond to uncertainty and emotion and change ourselves. So, this isn't a he versus she experience. It's both of us. We're all learning.
Totally.
Yeah. Would you say that support sometimes means support matters more than fully understanding what's going on?
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. I mean, you might never fully understand. I mean, if the subject you're trying to support doesn't understand, then what chance does the person on the other end necessarily have, especially when it's an emotional thing? So it's far more important, I think, to be supportive than to necessarily understand where it's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Let's say, especially if that's what the person needs at the time. You know,
exactly.
if
And
understanding is
knowing their
not
needs.
important, then.
Yeah, I would say if you didn't have the energy or interest in supporting your partner, then the problem there is probably bigger than menopause.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Brian, I want to thank you because I've been really looking forward to our conversation. You have so many great insights. You've said some really interesting things that are going to stick with me. And I think that's fabulous. And I want to wish you and Jess the best because
Thank you.
I think you guys are a great representation of what this can look like when we fully support and listen to each other.
The second marriage has been an adventure, and I wouldn't have done it any other way. There's nothing about the way she's changed that scares me even a little bit anymore.
Good. You got a good one. So does she. Thanks, Brian.
No problem. Thank you.